All right, thank you. All right, hey, happy to see everyone here. It's the last session of the day.
Hi there.
So if you need a little bit of a sugar pick, I have Sour Patch Kids.
And Mountain Dew.
That's for me.
Okay, you have the Mountain Dew. I was just complimenting you on your choice of beverage.
Yeah. So this is, the session's titled Drupal 8 Media Status, but we're actually going to cover some Drupal 7 stuff too. I gave this a couple times, including last year here, and I realized since then that it's nice to cover a baseline of what's kind of the current situation in Drupal 7, the quick what modules do we recommend, that kind of stuff, as a good what the current status is, and helps understand where we're moving forward for Drupal 8. So yeah, a little bit about me. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah, boo, Huskers. I work at Lullabot, which is a distributed company. We all live at home and work at home, and I really enjoy that. Those two kids are at home too. That's Oliver and Linus. Yes, Linus is inspired by Linus Torvalds. That's how we came up with the name of it. And he's already got my code review expression down. Seriously, what am I looking at here? It's great. He's the spitting image. And of course, I have to mention Rodney. He's my cat. He's like the Drupal cat. I consider him the unofficial mascot of Drupal. And he actually almost ran for the Drupal Association.
He would have won.
He submitted a candidate proposal, but they made him stop doing that. And if you don't know me already, I'm kind of known as the module guy in Drupal.
Thank you, Dave.
This is a screenshot from today. Because I even wrote a module to keep track of how many modules I've written and how long it's been since I wrote the last one. But you can work, it's abstracted, so you could put in any username here. It's not just me, but it defaults to my name. And I want to talk a little bit about Cedar Falls, because I've had an interesting time here. And I assume Cedar Falls. Falls, it's a river, that's not falls. Where are the falls? Because I'm originally from South Dakota, and Sioux Falls, that's our falls, right there. I'm looking for this in town. I don't see it. It's a little deceptive. And I would just like to, another street was pointed out, but there's College Street, Campus Street, and University Avenue, all in one little clip. You're very obvious with your street names here. Anyway, that's my Cedar Falls roast. Okay. Okay. So Drupal 7. All right. So let's talk a bit about what's in Drupal 7 core right now. So we have these wonderful file fields in Drupal 7. We didn't have them in Drupal 6 before. They were contributed modules, but now they're in core. Hooray! You can upload PDFs. We also have image fields. You can upload images and all of your wonderful cat GIFs, or GIFs, however if you pronounce it wrong. And you can provide alternate text and titles and that kind of stuff with your image fields. And that's really all there is with Drupal 7. There's image styles you can transform into thumbnails and that kind of stuff. But that's really all there is in Drupal 7, which kind of leaves a lot for people that has left to be desired. And Drupal 7 has a lot of limitations too. Your interactions with files are limited to your content. You're working with your content only. You can't just go and say, I want to replace this PDF with a new version. You have to go on your content, delete the file version, upload a new one, and hope that it kept the same name. And it won't. And the other fun thing is, if you do decide to, swap out an image and I want to try something else. Once you then save that content after you've swapped out the old image with a new one, your old image is then deleted for you. And that's kind of this mysterious behavior that people don't assume happens out of the box in Drupal 7. Because once you start wanting to reuse files, you're like, wait, where did that, I just uploaded it 1 hour ago, where did it go? And it's like, nope, you have to re-upload it because people deleted it for you. There were good intentions behind that. It's like, we're trying to save you disk space, but I don't think that's really a huge concern with a lot of sites anymore. And again, you cannot reuse those files, and you can't really do much else with those files. Like with the image field, you can add an alternate and title text, but you can't add a caption. You can't add an image credit. Where was the photo taken? All that kind of stuff that maybe you would consider like EXIF data to be represented, in an editorial fashion. So, this is where Contrib modules step up to the plate in Drupal 7. And this is going to be kind of our quick hit list of like the current stuff that we recommend people kind of use and base off of. So the first solution is file entity. File entity is kind of fixing a lot of these assumptions with core. The first thing is that it gives you a listing of your files, just to see everything that's been uploaded onto your site, because you don't get that out of the box with Drupal core anyway, at least with Drupal 7. And you can do stuff like view and add and edit and delete. We'll see these. You can add new files, just arbitrarily. They don't have to be content necessarily. And you actually see here that you can actually upload an archive of files. So if you have a zip of files, you can upload that. It'll automatically extract them for you, which is kind of a handy thing. You can manage your files independently. So you have an edit form for your files that's completely free of everything else. You're just editing that file. And kind of a good example here, we've got the file name of the file. You can fill in some default alternate and title text that are used with that image everywhere it's used. And there's also some replace file functionality there, which actually a lot of people find useful. Yes, question?
I think I knew this, but I forgot. The name field, is that literally changing the file name or just the title of the entity?
That's just changing the title. Yeah, you're not actually controlling the actual stored name in the system. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like your node title basically. So. And there's also this concept of file types. So logically, people kind of consider files into different types. Like there's image files, there's audio files, there's video files, and documents too, and everything else. So we kind of built in this concept into file entity out of the box. So like your image files could have different fields like caption and location and that kind of stuff. But your documents could have different fields like who uploaded it, or I don't know what you want to add to documents. Video, you could add a length field for the length of the video, that kind of stuff. And be able to control them differently. And we kind of try and magically figure out when you upload a file which file type this corresponds to. You can actually edit all the MIME types that the file type owns. But by default, like if it's an audio file, you'll get assigned audio. You could even create a new file type like for images called screencasts or screenshots with like a link to where the screenshot was taken from. And when you upload an image, it'll say, hey, is this an image or a screenshot? And you pick screenshot, and then it'll go to the next step, and you can fill out the fields for that file. Yeah. And like I said, you can manage fields on those files, just like everything else, like nodes, like taxonomy terms in Drupal 7. You can now do those with fields. You can do the manage display and everything too, configure how they're displayed. And one thing that's always worth mentioning, because this is a really hard, difficult, and challenging concept in Drupal 7, is the file display. So we saw that there's the Manage Display tab here that configures how the fields are attached and visible. But the Manage Display is the actual file content itself. And we have an interesting concept. So let's say you have two video files. One is an MP4 that you uploaded. That's just a video file. And one is a YouTube file. You've maybe represented this YouTube file as something in your system. Now you don't want to display those two things the same way. You probably want like an HTML5 video player for your uploaded file, but you want to use the YouTube player for your YouTube file. So with our built-in file types, like they would be both categorized as video, but how do you display them separately without creating two different file types? That could be one way to do it. but this is our kind of way of doing it. It's kind of like this fallback behavior. So you'd probably first configure like, all right, I'm going to try and display it as a YouTube video. And this module will go to the code that has that file formatter and says, hey, can you display this file? And the code says, I'm gonna look at it, is it a YouTube video? Yes, it is, yes, I can display, here's my output. And this code will then go, oh, hey, I got output, I'm gonna stop and return that. But in the case of your uploaded file, the YouTube one, which was first in the order, would say, this is not a YouTube video, I don't know what to do with this. And it would say, nope, not me, I'm hands off. And then the file entity goes and says, oh, that didn't give me anything. I'm gonna try the next thing, which is an HTML5 video player. And it's gonna be like, is it a file that was uploaded? Yeah, I can show some output for that. And so it goes through this fallback behavior of levels to display the file. So that's the managed file display in how I like to explain it. Once you get that, it's very powerful. It's like you can configure many different providers, all in different orders, all that good stuff. And we do provide some simple formatters for audio and video, just as like HTML5 audio and video tags. So you can display that uploaded content out of the box with file entity. And we also provide a handy thing. I liked this download link. You can download files normally with Drupal core, but once you want to start like tracking file downloads or logging like the IP of who downloads the file, or you want to start restricting like how many times someone can download a file, this becomes more handy because it gives you an abstract file/5/download path rather than the actual path to the file. And it's protected by a token. So if you're signed in, you can't share your download link to someone else who has a different account. Theirs won't work. They have to get their own download link for that. And like when you change the file or update it, that token changes as well. So we're always ensuring that people get the fresh download link, and then it downloads directly instead of displaying in line. So that's file entity. And then there's the file lock module. This solves one of the core assumptions that it wants to delete files after 6 hours, or after you've not used them anymore. File lock basically kind of interrupts the process and says, no, hey, I'm using all these files. You can't delete them. Because there's a file usage system in Drupal core. And normally when you unuse a file, it says, nope, you can delete my usage. And then core says, hey, is anything else using it? And if nothing responds, it deletes the file. The file lock basically comes in and says, nope, I'm using it, I'm using everything, I'm using every file. And so it won't automatically delete your files for you. So this is just a handy one to have like on every site. Of course, you can still manually delete the files yourself through the UI. That overrides that. But this overrides the automatic stuff in core. There's the media module. It provides a widget for file and image fields that opens a media browser. It has different tabs. So you can upload, you can provide a URL to a file like YouTube and Vimeo. You can select from a library of stuff. And it's not a very good screenshot, but there's a powered by Drupal image in there. You can click on that and select it. One major difference between the 1.x version of media and the 2.x version of media in Drupal 7 is these libraries are powered by views in the 2.x version. They were hard-coded in 1.x. So if you want to add new filters or change those filters or like add new tabs, you can do that out of the box with views with the 2.x version, which is really handy. Like we ship with a My Files tab by default that shows only the stuff you've uploaded rather than everything. It kind of shows a way that you can create your own tabs with views. Like I said, it has the web tab where you can paste in the URL. And if you have something enabled that will handle that for you, you can save YouTube videos in your file field. And what I kind of recommend for those remote things is Media O-Embed. Typically we've had like modules like Media YouTube, Media Vimeo, all these different sub-modules for each provider. But Media O-Embed kind of handles them all. So if you're okay with that, with handling as many things as people want to paste in, This is probably a good solution for you. If you only want YouTube videos, maybe just use Media YouTube. But for the most part, I think this covers a lot of the use cases. So that's one we use. For embedding with WYSIWYG, we do ship with WYSIWYG module support out of the box, but if you use the CK Editor module, which I kind of do recommend for anyone starting new Drupal 7 sites, we moved our CK Editor module integration to a separate thing called Media CK Editor, aptly named. We're not very creative with our names. Just because there's a lot of code and we wanted to have more maintainers that could work on this and not have them overwhelmed by all the code in the media module to work on. So that's into a separate thing now. And there's also a fun project called Entity Med, which I will talk about later. But it does have a Drupal 7 version, and that's worth mentioning here. And there's also another module, an alternative to media called Scald, that's been developed by a very good team that has a very different UI. They have more of a drag and drop kind of thing, like a sidebar where you upload stuff and then you would drag something into your body field. I don't know how I feel about it quite yet, but having competition is, I've come around to having it being a good thing, because I will explain in a little bit. So, Drupal 8 core. Yeah, I set the tension there. Drupal 8. What's in Drupal 8 core? So Drupal 8 picked an official WYSIWYG editor, CK Editor. That's why I said that earlier. Yay, CK Editor! And they also provide some basic image uploading. Very basic. You can upload a file, it's managed in Drupal, and you can select the image size, but you can't select an image style, like thumbnail or anything, or a responsive image style. If you want to work on that, see Mark Drummond tomorrow.
It is an issue.
Yeah, I know. I plugged you. I plugged you. And you can like align it and add a caption too, but I believe the caption also doesn't work. So if you want to fix that, see Mark as well. Anyway, you're responsible now. There is a basic file listing in Drupal 8 now, where basically it's a link to the file. You can see some details about it, who uploaded it. You can actually see who uploaded it. That's interesting. And you can only see where it's used. So if you click on that places where it's used link on the right, you see, oh, it's used in my article 1. But that's it for file listings. The one thing that I just am very, very happy with fixed in Drupal 8, you can configure when those orphaned files or unused files are, what happens with them. So you can set this to never delete. And modules like Media will probably set that when you install the module for you, so you don't even have to take care of that. But you can change this to like whatever interval you want. You can change it to a month to give you time, like, am I going to reuse this file again soon? After a month is probably a good indicator I'm not at that point. But Drupal 8 still has limitations. Your interactions with those files are still limited to your content. We fixed the unused files after 6 hours. We made that configurable, so I'm calling that fixed. But there's only basic WYSIWYG support for image uploads. You can't use image styles or responsive image formatters. You can't reuse files still in Drupal 8 out of the box, and you still can't add fields to files. That's okay. Contrib is here. We're here to save you.
So you can't reuse files in core, but it still gives you a file count in the display?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, just
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
It was
Reusing files. So like if you wanted to use the same exact image without having to upload it twice on 2 different content nodes.
have it show up there.
Yeah, so like with the media browser, you're actually using that same exact file just in another place. Without making a copy, without cloning it, you're saying, I want to use that item again. Yeah. So, in New York City last year at Nice Camp, we kind of had a big effort to get all of us together in the same room. The media maintainers, the Scald maintainers, and other people active in Drupal media stuff. And we essentially locked ourselves in a boardroom with a whiteboard, and we're like, okay, we're competing for resources, we're struggling to get solutions out, people are not really happy with what we're doing so far. Or they're kind of happy, but they grumble a lot behind my back. And like, we need to really fix this moving forward. What can we share? What can we work on together? And after one day, like, we actually did come up with a plan. So this is the plan. These are the things that we wanted to work on. So we're going to have these 3 different components, basically, to media. With media module, you'd install the media module, and that's it. It would have the browsing, it would have embedding, all the kind of stuff, all in one package, which is unsustainable for us and too large of a code base. And it'd be nice if you could just use the embedding stuff. So we're moving embedding to its own component. Browsing and selection it's going to be its own independent thing. And then storage, it's either going to be, you can store things as files or you can store things as an abstract entity. And all of these embedding and browsing stuff will work with any entity type, is the goal. So you'll be able to use embedding for content and users and blocks. And you'll be able to use browsing for content, users, and blocks. All that kind of stuff. And if we abstract it for that, we make it work for everything, which is our goal. And speaking of goals, I kind of touched on this already. By architecting all this stuff to not just be media and files and work with any entity type, we're solving everyone's use cases. It's kind of an ambitious goal. Hey, we're just going to solve world peace in Drupal. It's kind of what it feels like at times. But we also want to make sure that we're working together. We're sharing these. We're working together in architecture. We have a common goal. We're not competing for how do things work together. And we design the system to work together with all these parts. We get momentum and we communicate a lot more as maintainers, which is good for us and it's good for end users. So it's a win-win, yeah. So embedding component, number 1. Entity embed. This is the most usable thing right now in Drupal 8 because I just, as of 2 hours ago, fixed it to work with the latest Drupal 8. During someone else's session, I'm sorry. So yeah, it's very usable. We're going to do a live demo since I fixed it. Well, there's still a couple of usability aspects remaining with this, but for the most part, we're pretty happy with it. Once the browsing component is done, we're going to make sure that we integrate with that. Right now, as you'll see, it's kind of a very basic UI. So yeah, that's entity embed. And Devin Carlson, one of the media maintainers, backported it to Drupal 7. So this is the module that you could maybe try to use now on your sites. And I'm going to go ahead and skip through all the fun screenshots. Sorry, you're going to miss Matt Lauer eating cheese. We'll see in the live demo. And we kind of learned something from writing entity embed that there's this concept of I want to make a button that embeds something of some type, and I want to configure how it can be displayed or the list of options of how to display it that could be reused by other stuff. So we're going to make this into a separate module too. URL embedding. So this is I want to embed a YouTube video in my WYSIWYG. CK Editor does have support for this out of the box, but it's a very simple plugin. So we have a Google Summer of Code project this year that's working on this. That we want to have a nice paste in a URL. We're using a nice PHP library to support lots of different things. And that you could easily write your own custom integration for any kind of custom URL if you wanted to. So yeah, check that out. I think we'll be able to show it off a bit more this fall.
What's the use case for that?
So it's you just want to paste a URL in your WYSIWYG. This could also be used.
Have it be displayed as?
Whatever. So by default, we kind of go with OEmbed integration. So YouTube says, given this URL, here's the HTML you should display for it, and we would basically display that. But you could write plugins or custom integration, given a YouTube file, I want to display it this way instead. So it's very customizable with the architecture we have. But by default, it kind of uses OEmbed stuff. So shortcodes. This is a WordPress concept that given a couple of different just basic fields, transform them into this custom string of HTML. We want to make it possible to embed these easily, define short codes through the UI, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's
What's the use case for that?
it's just custom one-off things that you encounter in your project. Like Brandon had an example in his presentation about callouts. Like a callout would be a good short code. On the recent project I worked on, like a quotation has a quote and the author. And rather than forcing your users to get the right HTML tags and stuff, you can just make a short code that says, give me the quote, give me the author, and it formats the HTML for them in a predefined way without having them to mess with that. So. And that way, when with Seek Editor and the widget API, like they can just drag the entire quote around and not have to like copy and paste the right thing in the WYSIWYG editor. They can't manipulate it too much. They have to right-click and edit it to change it, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that's the embedding components. Entity Browser is our browsing component. It's going to be a little bit of a big project still because we want this to be usable for any entity type. And it's going to do a lot of stuff. It's the one I'm feeling, we're making progress, but I'm starting to feel a little unconfident about just because of how much responsibility it has from that perspective. Because this is all the stuff that we want it to do. We want it to have a configurable way of how to display the browsing. Should it be a standalone thing, an iframe, a modal? How do we display, the widgets? Do we have views? Do we have field widgets? Do we have entity forms? How do we allow the user to select between those things, tabs, jQuery UI element or dropdown or a button, that kind of stuff to select which thing to do. And how do we display once you've selected things? Is it a grid? Is it a list? All that kind of stuff. That's all represented there. But here's a screenshot of it working. We have selected 2 files with Entity Browser. It's just kind of a simple listing. Or this is a view being able to select from 2 files that are uploaded with just a simple checkbox. So you check. And
What's that drop down for file listings?
I believe that's like the different ways to, so that like in that select you'd have also upload. So like that's the different tabs right now. The file entity module will still exist in Drupal 8 because we have those core kind of things to fix still. There's an unofficial GitHub port right now that's usable-ish. We're working on evaluating what we want to do with that module and the direction we want to take with it. So we're still working on that. The media module, this is my favorite part. Like the media module in Drupal 8 is essentially going to be like a features module now and not have like any of its really own code. Because it's going to take a pre-configured entity browser button. It's going to take it's going to take an entity embed button for your WYSIWYG for files as a default config. It's going to have a browser that's a default config, and it's basically going to link those up together. And that's all it's going to do. Maybe it'll have some like nice UI on top of that or something if we need to. But yeah, that's
Who's
all.
going to maintain it?
It could be like a robot at this point.
Yeah. Module maintaining opportunity here.
I could outsource that to my kids now at this point. Yeah, they'll know how to do it by that point. So I mentioned files and storage as in our components earlier. So file entity assumes you want to use files for everything. Media entity is taking a little bit more of an abstract concept and allows you to store anything media as a separate entity type. So you could provide a Twitter media entity or a Instagram media entity. I'm not honestly a huge fan of that abstraction a bit. I'm more of the file entity side. But this is actually a lot more along in Drupal 8 development. And there are production sites using this right now. So it's more like if you want something right now, this is totally fine. This is more what the Scald module now exists as in Drupal 8. There, you create a YouTube video, you have a form to create a YouTube video, but you're not really creating it, you're referencing it. So it's a little bit of a weird UI, I think. That's the YouTube media entity. And then there's Media Pink Eye. It's not named after the disease. Don't worry. That's kind of like their feature module, bringing everything together. Media entity, entity browser, and the entity embed stuff. So that's their distro feature module. We're also working on some cropping stuff, because there's lots of cropping modules around the ecosystem in Drupal 7 that all kind of do the same thing. So we're trying to figure out if maybe we can share some resources there between all the cropping and just offer different UIs for it. That's in planning. There's the fallback formatter module. This is our managed file display, how that concept of falling back and trying different things of displaying output. You can now use that for anything. It's a field formatter. So this is kind of our way of moving it into its own thing. So you kind of have the same concept. You pick which things you want to try, you order them in a certain way, and you can configure them with their details. Recycled formatters. I like this name a lot. Did you know, I should have this in my assumptions slide. Did you know that if you have a file field in Drupal 7 and Drupal 8, and you happen to upload an image to it, you have no way of displaying that field as an actual image. You can't display it as with an image style or respond, like you have to have an image field to do it. You can't have a file field that does all of that. And I think that's a silly limitation. So this module, there's a one in Drupal 7 called File Image Formatters. And we're going to have this available in Drupal 8 that lets you use between the two file types and use any formatter. And it's kind of nice because it uses kind of the same concept, like, hey, is this an image file that you're currently trying to render? If so, okay, you can use my formatter. But if not, it won't return any output. So that's where you could use this with your file field. Yes?
So in managed displays, I'm seeing a number of options in. If it's an image, should do these things. If it's a file to whatever, do this thing.
Yeah, so you would use this like with your file field. Like you would configure an image formatter and say a display is using thumbnail and also a display as a video, and it would do the right one.
Yes, more UI.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of UI still. I'll admit that. And we're going to separate the file download stuff to its own component as well, and move that out of file entity because that's useful regardless. We still do have some struggles with stuff. We're still a loose collaboration of people, kind of a thing. We're not an official, blessed by Dries himself initiative, so we don't have, it's unofficial. We have lives. Sometimes I have kids. It happens. So it's okay if I drop off for 3 months, but that means that things slow down for 3 months. So we struggle with communication and momentum and funding like everyone else does. But I say that we struggle, but we still have a lot of really great contributors. This is just a highlight of all the people that have contributed like within the last couple of months. And this is growing. And I'm tracking, like if you were to contribute on the sprint, you'll get listed on this slide on the next time I present. I promise you that. So like it's growing. There's space for you still here. And then I'll make the images smaller and there'll be more space for more people. So if you'd like to join these people, and myself, and all the other media maintainers, where do I get started? We have a website at drupalmedia.org. We're kind of figuring out how to use it a bit more, but we're starting to put more resources all there. We do meet in the #Drupal-Media IRC channel. That's where I hang out every day. And lots of other great people do too, so feel free to ask a question there. Don't get frustrated if no one answers, it's just IRC. If no one answers, file a support issue or something like that. We're doing all of our primary development for Drupal 8 on GitHub, so we can have pull requests. Once Drupal.org has the issue queue workflow that they desire, we'll probably move back. But we're on it for now. I waver on it, whether I like it or not, that we're on GitHub. We do have a group, groups.drupal.org/media, where we can post discussions and the events that we're working on, sprints, that kind of stuff. And kind of the two leads we consider myself and Yanez, or /RSM. feel free to contact one of us. Something that we're also starting up is our D8 media guide. So I kind of had this thought that it would be really nice that once we're ready with all these modules, like we actually have documentation that's end user focused on how to use all this. So we wanted to keep this updated and anyone can contribute to this, and you'll be able to download it in any mobile formats or EPUB, that kind of stuff, and Creative Commons licensed. So we're still filling out the outline for this, and once we start to get more progress on the individual modules, like, we definitely love help with writing pages for this and writing like your experience as an end user. What would you wanted to know when you were using this module? That would be very, very helpful. We have upcoming events and sprints. Sunday, right here in the lounge area. I'll be sprinting on Drupal Media stuff. So there are many different other sprints that will be going on. Kathy's leading one. I've anointed Mark as leading one. Yeah. So like whatever you want to help on, we can find a spot for you. We don't just have code to work on too. Like I mentioned the handbook page. I want to get them started on that too. So that would be really nice to have. And of course, if you're going to DrupalCon in Barcelona, there will be people there sprinting. I will not be there, but there will be more media people there as well. And possibly Chicago mid-August as well. I'm not sure if there'll be media people there.
You're not coming.
I'm not going to be there, no.
You're gonna send a delegate?
I'll send a delegate, okay. And I always have, I really wanted to add a mention about Aaron Winborn, because he recently passed in March, and he's kind of like the creator of all this code. From Drupal 7 and before, and he suffered from ALS. And there's some really great ways that the Drupal community has honored him, including a community award, the Aaron Winborn Award, that's going to be given in DrupalCon Barcelona for the first time. So if you want to read more about him, I really had the pleasure of working with him in Chicago in 2011 at a media sprint at Palantir.net, and I treasure that week that we had with him a lot. That was really great. So if you want to read more, there's a community spotlight and his award stuff there. So let's do entity embed. Let's show this off here.
Yeah. What kind of cheese is it?
That's not cheese.
That's Velveeta.
Not
No
cheese.
cows were harmed.
Sorry, I said cheese. Let me mirror instead. Let's see. Guys. Okay, cheese purists, fine. Okay. All right. So this is my very up-to-date Git pull from 3 hours ago Drupal 8 install. I risked it, and it works. For anyone curious, I'm using a module called Admin Toolbar in Drupal 8 so that I can easily access all of my stuff. Let's see, maybe it won't actually work. That's great. I don't think it works on the mobile viewpoint. Okay. So I'm going to walk through how to set up Entity Embed. So once you've enabled the module, we're under Configuration, and under Content Authoring, there is Embed Buttons. So that's the first place you're going to go. We ship with a default embed button for content out of the box, just to kind of give a nice way to use it. But we're going to add a new one for files. So we're going to go to Label, File. I can pick my entity type. These are all the things that you can possibly embed with this module out of the box with Drupal 8. So I could embed a tour, or a user, or a file, a comment, a custom block, but we're going to pick File, Label. And the nice thing here with Entity Embed, I don't really cover it very much, is that we have plugins for how to display what you've embedded. So you can write your own custom plugin if you want to have a custom logic to how to display an embedded thing on your site, because I know lots of clients do that and want that. But by default, you can use any field formatter that corresponds to that entity type. So like rendered entity ID, and label, the first 3 out of 4 there are entity reference field formatters. URL to file, generic file, and RSS enclosure and table and files are file field formatters. And image is an image field formatter. So if you make your code available as a field formatter for a reference type, it's available here automatically. That kind of goes back to the reuse stuff. It's like, we have the ability to write custom plugins, but I don't think you should have to. And I can pick the ways that I want to allow this to be displayed. So I can say, we'll do label, generic file, and image. And it's going to restrict the options that are available when I embed. Go back to my content authoring. Now I need to enable that button in my WYSIWYG. Text formats and editors. I'm using full HTML for now, just because it doesn't have any restrictions with what I embed. I've got my current content embed, the E button there. You can provide your own custom button, it's fine. But by default, it's an E for entity, because that makes total
That was embed.
Embed, yeah. We've got our file here available. I'm just going to drag it down. This is the new Drupal 8 awesomeness. Enable it down there.
2 E's.
And now there's 2 E's for entity embed. And I do have to make sure that I enable this checkbox here, display embedded entities. That's what actually renders them. Which is also kind of nice because you can use it with any filtered text in Drupal. It'll work for you. Not just with WYSIWYG. So if you have an insert module that wants to insert some HTML, you use the right format that we use and the filter will take care of it. We're trying to get people to use the same syntax. You can build different UIs on top of it if you want. All right, back to site. Let's go content, add content. I'm going to add an article. And so I've got my 2 E's for entity embed. I'm going to go through the node one first. I made some cat content here.
It defaulted to node? Or why did it go to node?
I hit the button that corresponds to embedding node.
Lefty is node.
Lefty is node, righty is file. Yep.
Okay. I'll write this down.
So right now, there's a basic just auto-complete selection. Once Entity Browser is ready and it's available locally, you would not see this. You would see Entity Browser instead as our plan. But this works for now, and it's available in core. So now I've selected my entity, the wonderful article, hide when guests come over, eat grass, and throw it back up, because it's written by a cat, obviously. I can...
Not Linus.
Not Linus, no, he does not eat grass. I can pick how to display it. This is a content, so we haven't restricted this yet. I'm going to pick label, and I'm going to link it to it, and hit embed. There. There's my embedded entity. I can't tweak that. I could edit it, though. And I believe there's a bug with this.
Can you change the text? There it is.
Yeah. Just have to go back, label, unlink it. There. And the really cool thing is that this is using a custom HTML tag, Drupal-entity. And if you will notice, we actually store the UUID of that content in the tag. So when you deploy between your different sites or servers, you're going to get the same reference and get the same thing. And all this stuff is stored as data attributes on the tag. There's no special JSON markup, which is the bane of our existence in media for Drupal 7. It's a standard tag. This is what makes Jeff Eaton very, very happy. So yeah, how you configure it and how you display it. I can even do something let's change it back to a lane. This is the one bug in the module right now. Label, link it, embed, change the source. I'm just gonna add a title attribute. Did it work? Yeah.
Yay.
And that gets captured right there. The really cool thing, let's see, and that's very simple. Let's do more complex. Let's do the same thing. Let's render the entire node as a teaser.
Boom.
The entire teaser of the node.
Very nice.
So,
And I can drag that around. I can't edit in here because it's a widget in Seek Editor. But I can.
Magical and amazing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
now we just need to launch Drupal 8.
Now we just need to launch Drupal 8. So let's do files quick. This has a fun one to show too. Do Matt Lauer eating Velveeta, not cheese. And here I have my limited to 3 options. We could do a generic file. I am, it's not actual cheese. So it's a generic file rendered through a field formatter. And I've got my description is this is not actual cheese. Okay, so that's not that interesting. Let's do an actual image. Matt Lauer eating cheese, display as image. Image style. Let's do original.
Ooh.
I'm going to fill my alternate text. Not real cheese. Embed. It's an animated GIF. And I would like to point out the alternate text that you just typed in is an actual alternate attribute. So, like, we've tried to prioritize accessibility of this from the start too. Yes.
Does it get sent back to the entity? Or is it only in this?
This alternate is used only in this instance. I kind of touched on default alternate and title text with file entity in Drupal 7. How I imagine this working in Drupal 8 is, if you did have fields for those, this alternate would be pre-filled with whatever field value you have for that file. But then you are free to tweak this. Or you could translate this because it's all stored in the body. Like, it works out of the box. I love it. So yeah, that's entity embed.
Yeah. How much of that's in 7? Everything you do?
Most of this is in 7. I think the configuring how to display things is not exactly backported 100%. But the syntax that it uses, the CK editor integration, the filter, that's all backported. And I know that people are using it in projects right now in 7. So that is all I had. If you would like, this is a presentation that we are continually updating whenever we make progress on something in Drupal 8. So feel free to hit this link. This is on the session page as well. Feel free. I would love an evaluation of how this went there. And if you notice something wrong, you can even file a GitHub issue about this presentation. I insulted someone or Cedar Falls too much. So, any more questions at all?
Thanks for all your hard work, Dave.
Yes.
How much of all of that config that you're doing is exportable?
All of it. The button's exportable. The entity browsers will be completely exportable. And it'll all link up. Like if you use an entity browser with certain field widgets, it'll make sure that you have those exported as well along with them and stuff. Like it's all working with CMI and Drupal 8, yeah. All right, thanks everyone.